So now that we got some practice again, it's of course time to dive into those native device features, because ultimately that's what this course section here is about. Now, in case you skipped those previous lectures, which you of course could, you find my current lib folder attached to this lecture here, so that you can replace your lib folder and all the folders and files in it with my lib folder and all the files and folders in there. And if you do that, you should also make sure that you add some dependencies. To be precise, Google Fonts, UUID, and Flutter Riverpod should be added as dependencies, either by just adding them to your pubspec.yaml file like this. Once you then save that file in VS Code with the Flutter extension installed, those packages should be installed automatically. Or you manually visit those package pages and follow the installation instructions you find there. With that all out of the way, we can get started with native device features, and I do want to get started with taking some images. To be precise, when a user adds a new place, the user should be able to use the device camera to take an image for that place. For that, on that add place screen here, I want to add a new input below my title here, and that should be the image input, let's say. So an input that we can use to take an image. And there is no such built-in input that would allow us to use the camera and take an image. Instead, we'll have to build our own. So therefore, that's what I'll do, and I'll do that here in the widgets folder. I'll add an image underscore input.dart file, which will hold the image input logic. And in there, we're going to add the code to allow the user to open the device camera, show a preview of the image that was taken, and then also pass that image back to the add place screen, so that there we can use it to add it to the place that's being created. So inside here of image input, I'll create a new class and I'll name it image input. And this will actually be a stateful widget, because here we will need to update the UI and manage some state. Now for the moment, I'll set the image input constructor to a constructor that only accepts and forwards the key, so I don't accept any other parameters right now. And I will add create state, because of course we must add this method to the stateful widget. And of course, we also need that state class, the image input state class, or underscore image input state to be precise, where we extend state, and that state belongs to the image input, also up here. And then here in create state, we return a new instance of image input state. And in that state class, we of course add the build method, as we always do. Now in that build method, I want to return the widgets that should make up this image input widget. And in this image input widget, I in the end want to display a button that can be tapped to open the camera. And once the image has been selected, the button should actually be replaced with a preview of that image. So I want to show that image that has been picked. Though that image should also be tappable so that we could replace it. Therefore here, what I'll render will be a container, because this container widget will allow me to control the size and also the alignment of the content inside of the container. And here I'll set a height of 250 pixels. I'll set a width of double infinity to make this container as wide as possible. And I'll add the child here, and the child now, as mentioned, should either be a preview of the picked image or a button that allows us to take an image. And therefore at the moment, I'll just set the button as the child. It should be a text button that also has an icon. And then here, the icon I wanna use is of course the icon widget, where I use the camera icon, which sounds fitting for this purpose of opening the camera. Then the label is a text widget where I say take picture. And then of course we also need onPressed, where at the moment I have an empty anonymous function. Now I want to make sure that this button is centered inside of that container, which has a fixed height. And to make sure that this is the case, I will therefore add the alignment parameter and set this to alignment center, which will center the child horizontally and vertically inside of this container. So with that, we have this container and this button. If we go back to add place, we can now use this here. So here I'll add my image input widget like this. And of course, at the moment, it doesn't do anything yet, but this will change later. If I save this and I go to this screen, I now have this take picture button here, which I can tap. And as mentioned, eventually this will be replaced with the image that we did select. Now I also want to add a little border around this input to make it clear where it starts and ends. And for that, I can go to my image input widget again and there to the container and set the decoration parameter to box decoration, because this box decoration constructor function then allows me to set a border. And here we can then create a new border with Flutter's border class, where I could now manually configure the different sides of that rectangle, so the different borders on the different sides, or we use the special all constructor function, which allows us to configure all the borders for all sides in one step. And here I'll give all my borders a width of 1 and set a color of theme of context color scheme primary. And there I'll actually add some opacity here. Like this. So this now should add a nice little border, as you can see. And I also want to add some spacing between the title input and this image input. And therefore back in add place, we can copy this sized box and add it in front of image input and maybe add 10 pixels of spacing. And with that, if I save this and reload, we now got some spacing between the title input and the image input. So that's looking good, but of course it's not doing anything. Now to do something, I'll add a new method here in image input in the state class here. And that will be a method which I'll call take picture. And in there, I then wanna open the camera and take an image. Now we'll do this in the next lecture. Here as a last step, I'll connect this function to my button by using it as a value for onPressed. And with that, the question now is how we can take an image here inside of take picture.